Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in again. You may have already seen this thing installed on the truck. This is my 2023 Frontier if you haven't. And basically, I'm just kind of doing a mishmash of videos here. I don't want to cram it all into one, but we have our CBI covert bumper right here, which is what this light bar and our Warren winch will be mounted to. So if you want to go check out those videos, make sure to go and check out the other videos, plus subscribe so you don't miss future videos. But I want to do an unboxing of this thing, show you exactly what you get. I'm going to show you in this video how we wire it up and just how it all works. And then again, you can go check out the other videos or future videos to see how it all works and looks all when it's done. And the bumper is mounted with all the other goodies on top of it. So here we go. Inside the box, everything is packaged perfectly. It doesn't have any room to wiggle and wobble and wreck your light. Nothing's going to be scratched. Nothing's going to be dinged and damaged. It's all in there snug. And what this is I'll pull it out in a sec, but you have your 30-inch BAJA Designs S8 Amber light bar. Reason I got 30-inch is because the bumper that I got actually holds a 30-inch light bar. So this is the baby that's going to go in there. All right, so inside the box, of course, you have your light bar itself, and you can see in the video, you kind of have two different versions here. And what this actually has on these S8 lights from these guys is almost like Raptor lights in a way. It's daytime running lights, and basically it has two modes. So that one, those two, and that one have a separate mode. So when you're driving, that just turns on, similar to like the Raptor lights. And then the second mode basically turns this whole thing on and will blind anybody in front of you, because I've seen these BAJA design lights on, and especially a 30-inch light bar with this many LEDs pointed at you, you're definitely going to know we're coming. But it's just cool that they have two options where you can have a sort of a daytime running light as well as your full-on light bar like you're wanting when you're off-road and stuff. And then what else you get in the box, just before we get to the install, is your little fitting here with a couple adapters. This is all to wire it to the truck. We'll show you that when it comes. And then of course you get your little instruction booklet. You have your BAJA Design sticker if you're a sticker guy. This is a little QR code for instructions on how to install it. And your warranty, I believe, is in there as well. And then you get a little bit of hardware and some brackets that will bolt to the side right here to actually mount this thing to the bumper. I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I think this bumper comes with different mounts itself to mount a light bar to, but that hardware along with those mounts will still attach to this one, and most likely every other light bar, as long as you're 30 inches wide, obviously. And it should bolt up to the bumper just fine. All right, so with the magic of YouTube again, you can see we have the truck ripped apart here, but we do have our CBI front covert bumper on. The winch is in, you can watch that video as well. And Richard here is starting to work on the brackets for this. And for our light bar, CBI sends with their bumper these little brackets. And now you get one bolt in each side, which are these bolts here. Then you both get a nut and a washer on each. And then the one hole drilled on the end, you use the hardware that came with the light bar and it'll bolt right into the side. So we will get this thrown onto the truck here first, and then we'll show you how to wire it up to the aux beam. All right, and now the hardware that comes with the light bar to bolt onto the side there. Like I said, you got to use the hardware that came with it. You're just looking for the little nut and the little washer, and it'll thread through that hole onto there. All right, just for the tight quarters you got in here, we put the brackets on first. And what we're going to do is, if you look here, those slots are to the left and right. You got horizontal lines. And if you come up here where it bolts to the bumper, they're up and down. So that is when you get the light bar in here. That's your adjustment. You can go up and down and left and right. Get it exactly where you want it. Snug them all down, and then your light bar should point perfectly out of here. And if you're wondering, it's a 30-inch light bar. That is what fits in the CBI bumper for a 2022 and up Frontier. So if you got this exact truck and you want a light bar, you don't necessarily need BAJA Designs, but you do need a 30-inch. All right, so the light bar is in. What we did is we just kind of eyeballed it as straight as we could. You want it to point slightly downwards because say if Richard was the car in front of me, if we got it pointed up, you'll see when this thing turns on, it's a little bit like Hiroshima, and you will blind anybody that's coming at you and you'll blind anybody that's in front of you. So slightly downwards, not a lot, just enough to not point in somebody's face. And up in here, you can see now how it's bolted on. Just like that. It's got locking nuts, so you can kind of aim it, adjust it, one hand in there to kind of pivot it back and forth, in and out, get it where you want to line up with the cutout, and then crank her down. All right, now on to the wiring for this light. This is the S8, like I mentioned. It has the backlighting feature plus the full light bar feature. So, like I mentioned, you get your green, which controls the backlight, and then your black and white are your power and the ground. So what you can do is they do make a harness from BAJA designed for this. You basically just plug it in there. It's got a positive negative for the battery, and it's got a control that you run into the truck with a switch, and that switch controls on and off, plus the backlighting and full light feature. But because if you watch the channel, you know we installed this aux beam, I want to run this off of the aux beam controls. So, two options. Again, BAJA Designs sells a upfitter harness, it's called. Couldn't find one out here. I'm getting this done today, so I didn't have time to wait on it. It's hard to find, especially up in Canada where I am. But again, it just plugs in naturally into the harness, and then it's basically just got 3 empty wires that you can plug into the auxiliary box. We don't have one, so what BAJA Designs does as well is they send you this, and this is basically to make your own upfitter switch. So you got the 3 little orange plugs, they'll go in there. That's to keep the water out of the connection once it's plugged in. You have your 3 little connectors. You'll get your wire, crimp it down onto the wire, solder it if you have to, if you're not happy with it. The more, the merrier. You want this to be nice and tight and not short out on you. And then, once you have all that, this piece just plugs right into here. And now if you're wondering how exactly all this thing comes together, we got Richard doing his magic right here. Basically slide the little rubber over the wire. That's your weather seal, eventually when this goes in. You cut off the tip of the wire, so you expose it, slide it all the way into the connector here, and then slowly but surely crimp everything around. If you don't trust it, hit it with a little bit of solder if you got a soldering gun, and that'll help keep it in place. And then basically those 4 or 3 pins are hollow on the end. They'll go in there, make sure they're orientated the right way, because they will then come in here. So you do want your black, white, and green together, and they'll plug in, and basically those 3 pins in there go in the hole on those connectors he's crimping. That should send the power through the aux beam all the way to the light. You shouldn't have to worry about anything not working. And just like that, you've made your own harness. All right, so you can see just a tiny bit of solder on each one, just enough for a little extra protection if it decides to try to slide out of there, which it shouldn't. These are held on pretty dang tight now. But one thing to keep in note, the last 2 little barbs there on each one, don't crimp those down, because when you slide this into that plastic piece now, that is the hook to stop it from being able to pull back out. So when you click the 2 pieces together, it'll hold. So you slide this in, get your little rubber grommet piece down there to waterproof it, and you should be able to plug it right in to the light itself. Now, Richard actually found this, not me, but if you look on here, they are labeled A, B, and C. Black, white, green, A, B, C. So when you plug it into the other end of the connector you're building, make sure A, B, C is black, white, green. Because you don't want to cross these things around. You're just going to confuse the crap out of yourself when you're trying to wire this in. All right, now this is your finished product. You can see they are labeled A, B, and C on here as well. What you do, fish the wires through. You'll hear that little metal piece click. Get your rubber slid in with a screwdriver or something. Don't push too hard, because if you stab it, it's not going to work. But work them in, And then this plastic piece flips down and clips on each side there, which in turn holds everything in place inside. And now this is all ready to plug into the other end, and then we can run our fancy extension cord, because that's the only wire we had, but it does work, up to the aux beam, and we are all set. All right, so we got them both together. You get a little clip here. Make sure you clip it all the way in and this snaps down. It is a very tight fit. You do have to put a little bit of muscle into it, but you clip it down. And then what we've done is I've actually followed where we've routed the wires for the winch, which is under the headlight. It'll come up beside the battery, and then we can hide it behind everything here and get it to the aux beam, which sits up on the back of the engine compartment right on the left hand side. So that's all done. And as you can see, because Richard is way more professional than I am, he has turned our yellow ugly wire into a nice black wire here with a little bit of electrical tape. So now you won't have the yellow wire showing so much. It's easier to hide a black cable, of course. So now all that's left to do is wire to the aux beam, hook the battery back up, and give her a test. Okay, now that we got it all wired, if Richard hits auxiliary number 2, that is what your daytime running lights or your auxiliary lights, whatever you want to call them, look like. And then if you hit number 1, you can see the whole thing turns on, and I'm sure it's just as bright in the camera as it is in person. It lights up easily this garage, but in another video we'll go and test this thing out outside and see how she holds up.